What if everything you've heard about Medusa has been a lie? What if the so-called monster wasn't a villain at all, but a victim of divine betrayal, punished for a crime she didn't commit? Today, we're going beyond the myth of the snake-haired Gorgon to uncover the shocking truth of Medusa's life and why her story still haunts us today. Medusa's name is synonymous with terror, a woman so hideous and dangerous that even a single glance into her eyes would turn you to stone. But myths are rarely as simple as they seem. Behind the tales of heroes slaying monsters lie stories of tragedy, injustice, and sometimes gods who are far more flawed than the mortals they claim to protect. To understand Medusa's curse, we need to go back to the beginning, when she wasn't a monster feared by all, but a mortal woman admired by many. Her story begins with beauty, devotion, and betrayal. The beautiful priestess. Long before the curse, Medusa was celebrated as one of the most beautiful women in ancient Greece. She was born to the primordial sea deities Perseus and Ceto, but unlike her sisters, Stheno and Euryale, Medusa was mortal. Her sisters were terrifying Gorgons with monstrous appearances, but Medusa was human, with soft, radiant skin, eyes that sparkled like the ocean, and golden hair that cascaded down her back like sunlight on water. Her hair was so admired that poets sang of it, and artists painted her likeness, immortalizing her beauty. Her beauty wasn't just physical. Medusa was also known for her kindness and intelligence. She wasn't a vain woman seeking attention. She was deeply devoted to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war. From a young age, Medusa dedicated her life to serving in Athena's temple as a priestess, taking a vow of purity and chastity. She believed that her service would grant her protection and favor from the gods. But beauty often attracts unwanted attention, and Medusa's life was about to take a tragic turn. Men from across Greece traveled to Athena's temple, not just to worship the goddess, but to admire the priestess whose beauty was said to rival that of the gods themselves. Her presence was magnetic, and suitors often found excuses to linger in the temple, hoping for a glimpse of her radiant smile. Some claimed that even Athena was jealous of Medusa's hair, a detail that would later play a crucial role in her downfall. But Medusa's beauty wasn't just a blessing. It became a curse that would lead to her undoing. Poseidon's obsession. Among those captivated by Medusa's charm was Poseidon, the god of the sea, known for his arrogance and entitlement. Poseidon wasn't a god who took rejection lightly. He saw Medusa not as a person, but as a prize to be claimed, a symbol of conquest in his ongoing rivalry with Athena. The gods were often embroiled in personal feuds, and Medusa would become collateral damage. Poseidon approached Medusa several times, offering her lavish gifts and promising her immortality if she would become his lover. But Medusa was loyal to her vows. She rejected him time and time again, even though she knew the dangers of turning down a god's advances. Poseidon's obsession with Medusa wasn't just about desire. By seducing or taking her, he believed he could humiliate Athena. After all, Medusa was the goddess's most devoted servant. In his mind, corrupting her purity would be a victory over his rival. One evening, as Medusa walked along the shoreline, Poseidon appeared once more. The waves crashed violently against the rocks as he emerged, his eyes fixated on her. But this time he wasn't asking, he was demanding. Medusa fled in terror, her heart pounding as she ran toward the only place she thought she could find safety, Athena's temple. She burst through the temple doors, tears streaming down her face as she prayed for protection. The flickering torches cast shadows across the marble walls as her sobs echoed. But Athena didn't intervene. Poseidon caught up to her within the sacred space, and there, beneath the cold gaze of the goddess's statue, he forced himself upon her. The once holy temple became the scene of an unforgivable crime, Athena's wrath. When it was over, Medusa lay on the temple floor, broken and betrayed. Her sobs filled the empty halls. But her suffering wasn't over yet. Medusa prayed once more, begging Athena to help her, to punish Poseidon for desecrating her temple and violating her loyal priestess. But the gods didn't operate by mortal standards of justice. Instead of protecting Medusa, Athena appeared before her with cold fury in her eyes. To punish Poseidon would be unthinkable. He was too powerful, too untouchable. Instead, Athena turned her wrath toward Medusa, blaming her for what had happened. Whether out of jealousy, pride, or anger over the desecration of her temple, Athena delivered a punishment that would scar Medusa forever. The curse and isolation. She cursed her. The golden hair that Athena had once envied twisted into a nest of venomous snakes. Her soft features contorted into a monstrous visage, and her eyes, once admired for their beauty, were now deadly weapons. Anyone who dared meet her gaze would be turned to stone. Medusa was no longer a woman. She was a monster, cast out from society and forced to live in isolation on a desolate island. Alone and abandoned, she mourned the life she had lost. At night, she would sit by the shore, listening to the waves crash, longing for the peace that would never come. Life as a monster. But even in her exile, Medusa couldn't find peace. News of her curse spread, and soon, warriors and adventurers sought her out, hoping to kill her and claim her head as a trophy. For years, Medusa defended herself against countless attackers. Some were skilled fighters. Others were greedy men hoping to profit from her suffering. But they all met the same fate, turned to stone by her gaze. Medusa's once kind heart hardened with each battle. She didn't ask to be a monster, but the world treated her like one. The more men came to kill her, the more she learned to survive. Her island became a graveyard of stone statues, a silent testament to her cursed existence. Each statue told a story of ambition, greed, or heroism turned to tragedy. But Medusa's story wasn't over. The gods had one final role for her to play: Perseus and the beheading. The hero Perseus, son of Zeus, was tasked with retrieving Medusa's head as part of a seemingly impossible mission. But unlike the others who had failed, Perseus had help from the gods. Athena gave him a polished bronze shield that acted as a mirror, allowing him to see Medusa without looking directly at her. Hermes provided him with winged sandals to fly over the island, and Hades lent him a helmet of invisibility. Armed with a divine sword, Perseus set out to confront the Gorgon. When he reached her lair, Medusa was asleep. The flickering torches illuminated the statues surrounding her, frozen faces of men who had underestimated her. Using the reflection in his shield, Perseus carefully approached her. For a moment, he hesitated. Was she truly the monster he had been told about? Or was she something else entirely? But he couldn't afford to second-guess himself. With a swift strike, he beheaded her, ending her cursed life in an instant. From her severed neck sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, a giant with a golden sword, both offspring of Poseidon. Medusa's legacy. Even in death, Medusa's power lived on. Perseus used her head to defeat enemies, turning them to stone with her petrifying gaze. Her image became a symbol of protection, carved onto shields and armor to ward off evil. But her legacy is much more complex than that of a monster slain by a hero. Medusa's story is one of injustice. She was punished for something beyond her control, cast out by the very god she had worshipped. Today, she is often seen as a symbol of female resilience and the consequences of mistreatment. Her story reminds us that even myths can hold powerful truths about human nature and the flaws of those in power. So, was Medusa a monster, or was she the ultimate victim of the gods' cruelty? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're fascinated by the hidden truths of ancient myths, subscribe to Ancient Chronicles and join us as we uncover the forgotten stories of gods, monsters, and heroes. There's so much more waiting to be discovered.